Greetings to you, Bishop Vedder here. Good to be with you again. Just wanted to come, you may have heard, that there's a movie out, a new one, called Father Stu. A movie about a priest from the Diocese of Helena. What a privilege, huh? A movie that's going to be seen across the world about a priest from right here in the Diocese of Helena. And of course, it's rated R, so you got to be careful, right, with young people. It's obviously about pre-conversion, and so it's going to have, some pretty rough language in there. So just so you know that, parents, that's up to you. But, it's with parental guidance, obviously, when it's rated R, to know that. But having said that, what an opportunity, to see that the grace of God, that no one's beneath it. No one's beyond redemption. The possibility that of God always searching for us, Not only to become a disciple, to become saved, but even to become a priest. Even to become a priest. That's a powerful thing. That right here in the Diocese of Helena, Montana, something so great was happening in the individual life of a person who became a priest that all the world is interested in listening to. That's what God does with us when we cooperate. I hope you enjoy the movie. God bless you. Bye now.
Hi, my name is CODY TREDIK, and I'm the Multimedia Specialist for the Diocese of Helena. This past week, actor and producer Mark Wahlberg, writer and director Rosalind Ross, and close friend of Father Stu and fellow priest Father Bart Tolleson were gracious enough to sit down with us for an interview about the new movie Father Stu. We hope that you enjoy, and check out Father Stu, which is now playing in theaters. With kind of the story of how long it's taken to get this movie to the screen, what kind of was the parts of his story, about Father Stu's story, that kept you going in getting this movie made? What inspired you?
Well, once I had actually really paid attention to the story and I realized, okay, this was coming to me for a reason, that I was going to make it, I didn't need any reminders. I mean, it was very clear to me. It's just, movies in general are hard to get made, and making a good movie is even harder. This is not the typical movie that you would go in and pitch a studio. I mean, at one point I was thinking maybe I could put Stu in a cape, or kind of try to, put him into some sort of superhero kind of pitch for a 3-picture deal with a franchise. But it's just a special and unique story. And so I didn't want to kind of go, I said it to a couple of people that I thought may get it. But again, it's all kind of subject to your own interpretation, right? Objective, you're reading it and you're thinking, maybe somebody thinks something's funny and somebody thinks something is dark. And so I just figured, people weren't really getting the tone of it. I was just like, I think there's only one way to get the movie made, is just kind of do it on my own. But from working with David O. Russell and another writer to then finding Rosalind Ross and letting her do her thing, it took quite some time. And I was starting to get a little worried that I was starting to age out of the role, between playing Stu as a young boxer and, more importantly, focusing on his later years after Hollywood and when he finds his calling. But those are the kind of things that you're just faced when trying to make an original movie.
The tone that you strike, it's been kind of talked about a little bit, especially in kind of the Catholic media circles, about kind of the unfiltered, kind of tone of the movie.
Let's just say every story that I heard with Father Stu was kind of told from a rated R point of view. He was just super unapologetic. I never had the luxury of meeting him. Now I have a couple of people, and Stu is now included on that list. If I could ever have dinner with somebody, dead or alive, he would definitely be right up there at the top of the list. But I didn't want to make the kind of conventional faith-based movie. I mean, the movie that we were talking about as a comp was The Fighter. Guys who were kind of, having to overcome lots of adversity and really challenging, but then ultimately becoming a very inspiring story when somebody really finds their calling. And so I just wanted it to be real, and I wanted it to speak to a broader audience. I think, I've seen lots of faith-based movies, and they're fantastic, but they're usually kind of preaching to the choir and not really converting many folks. And so I wanted this movie to be something that everybody could see, and everybody's taking something different away from it. But it is personally touching people, which is really nice.
I've heard the kind of the story of hearing about Father Stu's life from a priest friend of yours, and talking about Father Stu and how close he was with a lot of people here and been good friends with. Wondering, how have those friendships that you've had with priests in your life, how has that impacted your life and your walk of faith?
Oh, in the most profound way. I think, I've been very fortunate that people were adamant about staying in my face when it came to me doing the right thing and walking a path of faith. It's been pretty remarkable. Yeah, and these things obviously all happen for a reason, of course.
What do you kind of hope that, maybe young people that are, considering vocations, like whether that's honestly to the priesthood, religious, married life, anything, any young person that's looking for where they're supposed to be and where God wants them to be. Do you have any advice for, how people go about looking at their vocation, what they're doing?
I would just say if it's something that you feel is constantly tugging at you, then pursue it. I think, if you're able to really recognize that this is something that you're called to do, then I would say pursue it 110%. I always prayed that this would bring people to church, the vocation of priesthood, people to find their own focus on their own faith. So yeah, I think, and there haven't been too many films that have really shown a positive, the priesthood in a positive light.
You're here in Helena with an audience that knew him kind of in the latter part of his years in his ministry. Are you excited to, for this audience to see that? And what do you hope that this audience takes away from this movie? What do you hope that they're kind of inspired by with your portrayal of the story?
Well, hopefully, first and foremost, I get their approval and support, because that's all I really wanted to make Bill proud. I wanted to make Stu proud. I wanted to make Bishop Thomas proud. I wanted to make everybody proud. And I also wanted to make a movie that would help people and ultimately, give people hope and inspire people. So hopefully I get their approval. And this is always, I've done quite a few true stories, and I'm always most concerned, obviously, with the people that we're portraying in the film and that are directly connected to the people in the story. So, yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. We deal with it with the respect and sensitivity that it deserves, and you hope, because and again, within a 2-hour storytelling, a story that spanned decades, trying to condense it into 2 hours, having to take some liberties, that you get it right and at least get the essence of who Stu was, and I don't need I just hope that they appreciate the film.
When this project of the Father Stu film came to you, what was it about this story that made you think, I've got to get in here and do a treatment on this script?
Well, it's there were many things. I mean, I think I saw from the get-go that there was a character there who was totally unique and whose life was truly larger than life and unconventional, which is always an exciting prospect. But on a more personal level, I saw a man who was searching for his purpose in life and who was trying to find the light in the darkness and overcome some family trauma. And those are all things that I can relate to. And, I think for me, it's always finding a personal connection to a character to believe that I can maybe get inside their head a little bit and depict them and help people go on the journey with them.
With any story on kind of covering real people and real events, it always seems like it's kind of a balance of how much do you try to stay true to the nature of kind of what happened, and how do you translate it well to the screen in the best way it can. What did that balance kind of look like for you with this story? Yeah,
there was, everything that you see in the film is based on something that happened, meaning all the major milestones of his life. But I filled in the blanks with, my own experiences and observations and ideas. And I think what was most important to me was to capture faithfully the spirit of the man and his legacy.
I got to ask about a sequence in the movie where Stu gives, like a homily or is preaching to the parish community. And the dialogue in that scene, it seems one of the most powerful or even moving kind of depictions of, a priest doing his thing in a parish, talking about the faith, and in such a down-to-earth way. And I've got to ask kind of what went into writing that scene and maybe what inspired the dialogue there.
In approaching that, I knew that I wanted to write it about forgiveness, because that's such a big theme of the film, particularly with regard to the relationship between Stu and his father. And it felt like it would be the most sort of personal thing for him to talk about. But he had a wealth of personal experience to draw from in having grappled with that in his own life. And so I tried to write from Stu's heart, because I feel like you can tell when people are really tapped into and feeling what they're saying to you. And so it was important to me to write something for Stu that I knew he connected to, and to have him relay a message that he felt so strongly about.
I wanted to ask you kind of where you're at right now with being with this project for a few years now, and now it's finally coming up on screen. How do you feel about that and your good friend being on a movie screen portrayed by Mark Wahlberg? What are your feelings on that?
A couple years ago, we all thought the film wasn't going to happen. I mean, it was just we had heard rumors that there had been some scripts and they just weren't that great, and it just wasn't going to happen. And I know Mark Wahlberg shared he thought maybe it wasn't going to happen, and he just kept praying, and it just kept coming up over and over and over. And so I guess when he met with Mel Gibson to say, listen, I got this project, what do you think about it? And Mel had suggested Rosalind Ross to take a crack at writing the script, and she did, and Mark loved the script, and it all went fairly hurriedly. And I know when it was announced they were going into production, I was really surprised. I called up Bill Long and asked him, I said, did you know about this? And he goes, no. So now we found out a few days later. So it was exciting, and wanted to be supportive of it as much as we could.
Tell me a little bit about, so you probably told this story a dozen times now, but a little bit about how your friendship with Father Stuart Long started in seminary, and then kind of what that friendship looked like for you guys.
Yeah, our friendship started when we were both in seminary. We were in two different seminaries because I had transferred in from the Diocese of Dallas, and so Bishop Thomas had decided to leave me in Houston to finish seminary, and Stu was at Mount Angel. But we started emailing. Our friendship formed that way initially. And then we met face-to-face at actually Father Mark's ordination. We sat by each other, and little do we know we'd be the next two up. But from there, we hung out. I spent 3 or 4 days with him on the reservation that same summer. We really got to know each other then. And it was even before there was any noticeable suffering in his body. We walked all over town, and,
I have to ask too, your friendship with Father Stu, how has that influenced your priesthood and your ministry?
Yeah. I think Stu would basically tell me, ignore the silliness of the ministry. If someone's trying to get you off track, just ignore them and focus on what's really important. So just ignore all the stuff that's going to drag you down into areas that don't even matter. It doesn't matter. Stu had no fear. Sometimes he was, that got him into trouble, but anyway. And then I think now, thinking about his passing, I really missed him. It was surreal when he died because he'd been there for so long and he'd come back so many times. And so I think the first couple of weeks I would still drive to Big Sky. Once I remember I was in the parking lot getting out, and I was like, wait, Stu's not here. I was like, it hadn't hit me yet. But I think when I really, really missed him the most was like the third and fourth year after he was gone. Because you have that friend that's a good friend, and he gets you through stuff, and then Stu would talk to me about stuff, and I'd get him through stuff. And then all of a sudden it's just kind of gone. And there's great priests and they're good friends, but there's no one really replacing that friend that knew you pretty well, got your soul, got your sense of humor, got how you operated. But now with Stu being gone, it's this sense of he's still present, right? In the community of the saints, we still believe that our friends, if they go to heaven, aren't that far. And so I've just had times that I felt profoundly inspired to ask for Stu's intercession, which is a strange thing. With someone you knew that well, that you saw at his darkest time and his greatest time, to ask for his intercession. But we'd kind of made a deal before he died that if he got to heaven, he would help. So I'm holding him up to his end of the deal. And he's doing pretty good. He's getting a movie made about himself. So
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah.
yeah.